Hello, good morning, good afternoon, welcome everybody. My name is Magdalena and I work as a project manager for SIBB. SIBB is a digital companies association of Berlin-Brandenburg, and I have privilege to host you everybody here today. Today webinar is organized in frame of our international projects, International Project Point Out, supported by Berlin Senate. And the aim of this project is to bring together ecosystems of Berlin-Brandenburg metropolitan area together with the US partners and look for areas for collaboration. We are very happy that today we can, together with our partners, State of Georgia, organize this event in area of aerospace. Before I give a floor to our excellent speakers and experts, just very short and brief technical remarks. Because our agenda is quite packed, I would say we encourage you to write your questions in the chat, and depending if there'll be enough time, we will try to answer them after each of the presentation. Otherwise, there will be also opportunity to discuss and ask questions in the breakout rooms, which will follow after the formal part, presentation part of the event. I would like to now give a floor to our co-partners, main partners and organizer of today's event. I would welcome Sergio Dominguez, Managing Director of State of Georgia's Europe office. Sergio, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much and welcome everybody. Magdalena, a big thank you to you and SIBB and to our partners in the Berlin-Brandenburg area. My name is Sergio Dominguez. I am Managing Director of Georgia's Europe office. But before we get started, here are 2 QR codes. If we were in person, we would be exchanging business cards. The QR code to the left is to our website where you could find out more about the state of Georgia and what it's doing in aerospace. And to the right is a QR code to my LinkedIn page where I hope to connect with you following this event. So let's get started. Let's share a little bit more about what we do and how we could potentially partner together. First things first, the state of Georgia has maintained an official representation in Europe since 1973, and we have an all-star team based in Munich. We are 4, and a special thanks to Ms. Ellen Kraft for bringing everybody together today and for helping to organize today's event in conjunction with Magdalena. From Munich, we cover continental Europe, and we help companies enter and establish themselves in the US via Georgia, but we also help Georgia companies expand abroad and find new partners. We serve as an extension of Georgia's Department of Economic Development. In essence, an equivalent would be sort of a regional Ministry of Economy. And within the umbrella of GDEC, we cover a number of topics, everything from global commerce, international trade, tourism, film, and a number of other initiatives that really serve as the foundation of Georgia's economy. And today we are honored to have representatives from the Centers of Innovation, in this case, the Center of Innovation for Aerospace, who really are the industry specialists on the ground. They are the closest thing we would say to cluster managers of the industry. They are great conveners, they're experts. They are at the forefront of what industry is doing on the ground. Before we get started, I just want to share a little bit with you all as to what Georgia is doing as it pertains to air mobility. And here are some of the headlines that I'd like to share that have just happened in the last year. Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, busiest and most efficient airport on the planet, and a number of announcements that have been made, collaborations between UPS and Beta Technologies. You may have seen Joby and Delta partnering up, Delta taking a stake in the company to really develop flying taxis here. Gulfstream employs over 12,000 people and is the leading one of the leading companies in Georgia assembling and manufacturing in Savannah. So we have a lot of great news to share. The speakers that will join us later in today's program will go into greater depth about some of the recent trends and developments in the industry and really where we can build these partnerships and share a little bit more about what the future holds. And last, where can you bump into us and find us? We attend the major trade shows. Farnborough, we were at Farnborough this year. We'll be at Paris next year. Aviation Forum, which will be hosted in Munich in a couple of weeks. And obviously, we look at air mobility holistically. And so we also take into account other elements of mobility, electric mobility, whether it's in vehicles or in other platforms, and have attended also the IAA Mobility Show here in Munich. So with that, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today, and I wish you all a very productive afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergio, very much for this brief presentation. I would like to just mention that it's our third seminar with State of Georgia. We already covered topics on cybersecurity and also fintech. So there's a lot of synergies between our regions, and I'm happy that we can continue with today's webinar. And as mentioned, Berlin, the United States is very important partner for Berlin, Brandenburg area. And just to mention that Berlin has its office in the US, Berlin Business Office USA. And I would like to welcome now Charlotte Barr, who represents Berlin Business Office in New York, just to say a few words about the office.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, just a quick welcome also from my side. My name is Charlotte Barr, and I'm working as a project manager at the Berlin Business Office USA. We are located in New York City, and we are the direct representation of Berlin for the whole US. And our mission is to foster the economic relationships between Berlin and the US. So we're mainly supporting companies who want to either expand from Berlin to the US or also vice versa. And I'm very happy to partner with SIBB on this project.
Yes, thank you very much. Berlin Business Office is our strategic partners for different activities. But if any German companies is looking for some contacts also in the States, Berlin Business Office is for sure a place and the people to start with to talk. Thank you very much, Charlotte. And you can also approach Charlotte later in the breakout rooms. Thank you very much for this welcoming words. And the aim of this webinar is also to bring together both aerospace ecosystems and to have a better overview to the further discussion. We thought it would be good to start first with the overview, what is happening in both of the regions and what are the trends. I would like to now invite Alisa Sheehan, Director of Georgia Center of Innovation for Aerospace, to tell us what is the actual situation, how is the ecosystem for aerospace in Georgia State. Alicia, floor is yours.
Thank you. Let me just load.
Yes, we see it.
Perfect.
So fine.
Well, thank you so much for the introduction. And as Sergio alluded, we are a part of the Georgia Department of Economic Development. And so we're unique in that we service existing industries in Georgia, and we're one of the key resources across the state. So as Sergio mentioned, we're the Aerospace Center, and that's what we'll be talking about today. So we are actually one out of 6 innovation centers across the state that are focused on strategic areas for economic development and growth. So we have energy, technology, information technology, logistics, manufacturing, and agriculture. So we work with our colleagues across these centers, as there's quite a bit of overlap, as you can see, in manufacturing and energy and IT. So one of the things in which we do is help collaborate and develop research partnerships across the state. And I'll provide some examples of what that looks like and how we get involved in aerospace. So for aerospace, there are really 3 main sectors that emerge, and you can see here in this map of the state of Georgia. So we've got this metropolitan area around Atlanta that is filled with aerospace presence, and that means really all inclusive. So you've got folks that are in MRO, space, UAS, as well as focuses on our technical college and our university system. So those all have focuses in aerospace. So in addition to this metro area in the middle of the state, we've got a cluster in middle Georgia, which is just south, about an hour and a half to 2 hours from the city. And we see a big focus there on MRO and aerospace manufacturing tied to the Department of Defense and the Air Force Base located in middle Georgia. And then if you'll follow and look out on the edge of the state of Georgia, Savannah and the port are another major location. And as Sergio mentioned, that's where Gulfstream is located. So they're a major employer in that region as well. We have other clusters across the state that are really growing in aerospace. And we'll actually be hearing from one of them located in Augusta today, who's going to share with you kind of their regional airport and kind of transformation for aerospace in that region, which is really exciting. So how do we get involved with all of these different companies and sectors in aerospace? We really like to say we help companies solve challenges, right? So what's plaguing companies on the ground is where we can help get involved. And that can be anything from innovating products or processes to overcoming workforce challenges. And when we talk about aerospace, it's important to keep in mind that we're talking about all of these different sectors. And so Georgia has really these 5 key aerospace sectors that we engage with across the state. So of course, air transportation and passenger mobility is a big part of the landscape in Georgia. We've got the #1 busiest airport in the world at Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson. And then we've been instrumental in bringing UAS to the state of Georgia and helping grow. So we have over 100 companies and counting. And Gary O'Neill, who is also part of the Center of Innovation, really helps lead and bring these companies to Georgia. He leads our working group, which was one of the first entities in Georgia to help collectively understand the UAS landscape. And so that's still an active and ongoing group that's continuing to grow and adapt those conversations on a quarterly basis. Again, we've got this MRO focus here ranked nationally #4. So there's a large presence across the state for MRO activities. And it's a large sector of employment, right? We've got over 22,000 employees that service and go to work in MRO. Space is an area that we're continuing to see grow. So we've got more than 50 space companies, and NASA suppliers are continuing to be an area that is growing in the state of Georgia. And then of course, manufacturing is a huge part of what makes Georgia attractive to aerospace companies, because it's the #1 export since 2004. In general, manufacturing is one of the top contributors to our gross domestic product, and it's about 61 billion for manufacturing in total, and aerospace makes up a significant portion of that. So we've got some cutting edge manufacturing technologies as well as processes that are here in Georgia. And we'll talk about a few of those as we provide examples of how we get engaged. So as Sergio also alluded to, one of the main focus areas that we're seeing here in Georgia is this focus on eVTOL, right? So this week we had a large announcement that Archer will be setting up their manufacturing facility here in Georgia and expects to complete its first stage in 2024. They're contributing and investing a significant amount. So they're looking at really filling and opening about 1,000 different jobs in Georgia and the Covington location in which they've selected. So this focus on electronic vehicles and air mobility is a huge sector that we're seeing grow, and that's in aerospace all the way to traditional electric vehicles as well. So how do we get involved across this diverse landscape? I really like to break it down into kind of 3 key areas. So one of the things is maintaining our expertise and establishing this really extensive network of resources and collaborators. So that means that we're able to connect manufacturers to entrepreneurs to researchers across the state to help build solutions to problems or to help create new problems and solutions all together, right? So really thinking about that research and development piece as being critical. And so one of the ways in which we do that is establishing formal research partnerships with companies across the university system. So that can be engagements with some of the powerhouses in Georgia, which would be Georgia Tech with the #1 aerospace engineering program in the country. It can also be the technical college systems. The University of Georgia and Georgia Southern all have a focus on engineering and are able to assist companies like Gulfstream and Delta. So those are some of the key ways in which we help establish those partnerships. And then last, one of the areas that I really like to think about, and that I'm sure we've all got a story or two to share, is on workforce development. And how do we really meet the needs of industry, particularly in manufacturing and aerospace? So here we're developing and deploying programs in partnership with a technical college. We're creating initiatives to build the workforce pipeline all the way through K-12. So really looking at that entire life cycle for what it means to facilitate the next generation workforce for aerospace. And a couple of examples of partnerships so that you can link pictures of planes to the kinds of work that we do. So in the top right, we've got this Air Force partnership happening with Hermeus. Hermeus is developing hypersonic aircraft, and they're located right here in Georgia. And so we've been able to help connect them with university research that's happening in their backyard and help facilitate access to other partners and suppliers across Georgia to help them on their journey to build and really do everything in-house in terms of vertical integration for the next version of their aircraft. So that's pretty exciting. We've also got projects and ongoing relationships with Delta and their research going on in Georgia. Then Lockheed Martin, of course, is a pillar for the state of Georgia as an employer in aerospace manufacturing. And we've facilitated research collaborations and ongoing partnerships with them. But last but not least, that interior photo would be Gulfstream. And we've got an ongoing project with Gulfstream and the University of Georgia right now, looking at how to incorporate virtual reality into their customer experience. And so these are some of the ways in which we engage with aerospace across the state of Georgia. But of course, we'd love to share more with you. So if you have any questions or want to contact us to learn more about the state of Georgia, please feel free to reach out. You'll get our contact information after the conclusion of today's activities as well. But Gary and I would be happy to talk with you, and we'll be hearing from Gary later as he kind of moderates the panel for us.
Yes, thank you very much, Alicia. Yeah, it's maybe worth mentioning. We are recording the whole webinar, and we will send it to all the registered participants, also with the emails to our speakers. So if you didn't have a chance maybe during a webinar to ask a question or would like to continue the conversation, which we encourage, of course, you will get all the needed information. Thank you very much, Alicia. And now let's move back to Berlin-Brandenburg area and let's see what is the situation of the aerospace sector here in Berlin. I would like to invite Professor Andreas Timmermann, Managing Director of Berlin-Brandenburg Aerospace Alliance.
Thank you very much. Yeah, the Berlin-Brandenburg, I hope you can hear me, yeah?
Yes, all fine.
Okay.
Yes, very
okay.
good. Yeah.
Okay. My name is Andreas Timmermann. I'm the Managing Director of the Berlin-Brandenburg Aerospace Alliance. That's a trade organization, trade association for aerospace industry in Germany's capital region, and we are a network of actors in economic, science, and politics. And our goal is the regional, national, and international level, and our activities support this field. Maybe the most important activities we are doing is to initiate, support, and implement research and development projects in the interest of our member companies. And of course, we are looking for key markets, new key markets, and that's the reason why we also attend this very nice meeting today. If you look for our region, it's a little bit smaller than the Georgia region. Most of our activities are in and around Berlin, as you can see here. Berlin and Brandenburg, we are one of the three big networks in Germany. Berlin, Brandenburg, next to the other ones are Bavaria and Hamburg, and our region, we have about 185 companies and research institutes as our members, and around 17,000 jobs in this area. Most activities, as I told, are concentrated in and around Berlin, and we have a second place which is growing very fast. That's the area around Cottbus in the south of Brandenburg. Our key topics are the engine development and production in our region. That's very easy to define because we have big companies, especially Rolls-Royce Germany, developing and producing big and small engines for aerospace. Another topic is the light aircraft construction of smaller planes, general aviation planes, 2- and 4-seaters. And the biggest topic we are working on since some years is low emission aviation, to develop new and innovative strategies in planes, as well as engines, as well as the airport services all around these. In the space sector, we are just developing and building up especially small and micro satellites since decades. And altogether, we are also very promoting testing and production-related services. New topics in the last years are especially drones, and Johannes Gabino Anton will later on be a member of the panel and give you some examples about his own new company. The key players in our region are small and big companies. I told you about the bigger ones, Rolls-Royce Germany, the most important member. MTU is also in our region, and we have a lot of smaller companies like Apus and Aquila. They are producing complete planes, smaller planes, right? But still we have 6 companies altogether in our region building complete planes. Also a lot of engineering companies, and of course airfields like Strausberg and Schönhagen. We have the biggest density in Germany of airfields and airports in our region. That's the key players in the space sector. There is a lot of new companies, just startups, as well as research institutes. I would like to give you just 3 examples of our current projects. One is KIFA, that's a consortium for innovative low-emission airfield strategies for regional air traffic. That's very important for us because we are just concentrated in general aviation planes and the services and airports for general aviation and business aviation. The KIFA project is at least something like a think tank for further innovative developments for regional air traffic and the infrastructure. There is the idea to produce alternative fuels decentralized at the airfields due to photovoltaic fields in the area of the airfields, and to produce hydrogen and PTL just at the place. Another project is a concept study, ITR, Innovative Fuels for Low Emission Aviation. Here we have discussed the feasibility and the economics of generating electricity-based fuels, as I told before, PDL and hydrogen, and the opportunities and obstacles for the decentralized supply of these climate neutral fuels. And very important, just the realization at 2 airports in Schönhagen as well as in Strausberg. And we try to build up these plants just during the next 2 or 3 years. As you can see, the study was performed with altogether 12 partners, and we had the pleasure to coordinate this development for this study. Another project is a test center which we are building up in Schönhagen Airfield, CEFA. That's component testing as well as complete planes to test complete planes, smaller 2- and 4-seaters and up to 20-seat planes. And we would like to concentrate all necessary testing facilities in one place. Yeah, that's a short overview about our activities, and we would be happy if you are interested. And I think that Magda will give also later on the email addresses of the speakers, so you can contact me directly. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much for this overview of Berlin-Brandenburg area. Yes, I will share all the contacts of our speakers, so please feel free to reach them and continue the discussion. It will be just a starting, hopefully, of the discussion today. Thank you very much for this overview. We can already see a lot of overlapping areas. And now we would like to focus a bit to see, I mean, it's a very important area for innovation and discovering new opportunities. So let's see and compare what's happening in both of the regions in terms of innovation hubs. I would like to now give a floor to Greg Larsen and Diana Johnson, Director of Innovation and Business Development from Skyworks Innovation Exchange in Augusta. Diana and Greg, the floor is yours.
Sorry, I'm trying to get my screen shared.
Yeah, it's way. Of course, it's no problem. I mean, presentations needs their time to take on.
Okay, can we see this?
Yes, we see. Not yet in presentation mode, but we see presentation.
Okay. It's not giving me what I need here. There we go.
Yes, now it's all fine.
Okay, so Greg and I are going to be kind of tag teaming this. I'll take you through the presentation very quickly. And as I forget things, of course, he can remind me, but Greg is one of my coworkers. He does business development, and I'm the Director of Innovation and Business Development here at the airport. So we've tried to do a holistic approach for our program. So we started basically with outreach to the students in the region. So we've started our STEM program 12, 15 years ago. We started, bringing in the elementary school kids for tours and just to get them out on the ramp so that they can see aircraft up close and personal and get them excited about it. We initiated a career day for middle school students. So they come out to the airport for most of the day and they go through different stages. So they go up to the tower for a while. They look at the Tracon up in the hub in the tower. Then they go to our MRO on the field and go through both their airframe and their engine areas. And we have a flight instructor come out with an aircraft to teach them a little bit about the workings of the aircraft. From there, we do a shadow program with high school students. So we have students that come out for several weeks between Augusta Regional and the Daniel Field, which is the general aviation airport in the vicinity. And they get some hands-on experience for the different areas there. And then we continue that as we're moving up the chain. So we have the aviation career pathways have started becoming initiated into some of the schools, the high schools. And even now there's a middle school up in Aiken County in South Carolina that's right across the river from us, that's also getting into an aviation career pathway type of thing. Of course, we have Augusta Tech that has the AMP program, and Augusta University that has the cybersecurity program. So we're trying to incorporate all of this with some of the young people that are up and coming to keep this top of mind type of stuff. From there, we went into the incubator. So we developed a specific aerospace business incubator, which that's all it handles. And basically it's to encourage, again, interest, innovation in the field. And what we hope to see, we had, the issues that everyone else has had with COVID. And so several of our businesses that had originally started up in the incubator have since either disbanded or gone in other directions. But we have taken that time to work on the building itself, which needed some renovations. And so the idea again is to start accepting new businesses into the incubator. We currently have 2 in there right now, but we want to get it to grow more. So we're looking at folks from transitioning out of the military, which is cybersecurity here in Augusta, would be an easy transition as an entrepreneur to come into a aerospace type of business from there. And then from our incubator, we developed the Innovation Exchange Forum. So we kept hearing that everybody was doing this and everybody was doing that, and that's being done. And yet we found that there wasn't a lot of collaboration. There wasn't a lot of exchange of ideas between the different organizations. And so we focused on trying to get that collaboration and coordination through this exchange forum. So we have folks from government, military, educational institutions, private industry, they all come together for this one day so that they can say, oh, I'd never thought about that, or reaching out to other groups saying, hey, let's talk about this together, or let's work on something together. And so it also then too provides exposure for some of these new technologies and kind of heightens awareness. So that's what we're looking for, to get these folks together, get them moving the industry forward, especially here in the state of Georgia and in Augusta. So as we were going through these 3 different facets, we kind of looked at ourselves and we felt like we didn't have any kind of exposure to these new technologies on our airport. And so we stood up a working group, and we got people from everywhere. So we had military, we had our economic development groups, we had, the FAA, we had some industries that were in the power generating industries, we had OEMs for AAM, we had different universities and Rolls-Royce, I know that was mentioned earlier. GDOT, of course, has been a very important partner for us, and currently they are looking at doing a AAM study for the state of Georgia to incorporate some of these new technologies as well. So they're one of our important partners as well. And UPS Flight Forward, of course, we've heard about them from several of the speakers already. So we reached out to them as well. And so they all got together and we talked, over a period of several months. We had multiple meetings and kind of threw out some ideas. We kind of brainstormed, and we really wanted to see, okay, what is our airport going to look like once we start to incorporate some of these technologies? And so from the input of all our folks, we started to incorporate some of these. So we have an area where we've designated for a drone zone. We have the vertiports down here in the pink. In the yellow, we have air cargo, manufacturing, that type of thing. as you get onto the field where we have basically most of our infrastructure in place here. We've designated an area for our first electric aircraft charger, which should be up and operational within probably the next month or two. I think we've had some supply chain issues with one particular piece of equipment that we have not been able to get yet. Georgia Power is waiting on that. But we've also decided, well, how are we going to be able to incorporate these AAMs into our regular operations? So we have our general aviation facility over here. We have our commercial airline terminal over here. And so we felt like right in the middle of those two is where our AAM folks can transition to either or. So we're looking at putting a small AAM terminal right between our general aviation terminal and our commercial terminal so that the folks will be able to go either way, or they'll be able to transition from those other types into the AAM eVTOL type of infrastructure that's up and coming. So we have really tried to get a good idea of how we can do this. So one of the things, when you look at this aircraft charging station, it's going to need quite a bit of property. Well, that's our general aviation ramp and our airline terminal ramp as well. So we had to be very cognizant of the fact that this may be the only charger on this side of the field, which is one of the reasons we developed the vertiport ramp over in this area. So the charging stations will be over there. Any type of a MRO specific for eVTOL type of aircraft can be over there, hangars for these types of aircraft, and there will be charging stations through here as well. Right at this point in time, Georgia Power is telling us they can handle all of the needs that we have for electric type of charging. We've also talked with Rolls-Royce about the possibility of doing a microgrid. So we're looking at all different types of options. As a matter of fact, we're looking at possibly hydrogen hybrid types of technologies as well. So this has not been accepted by the FAA yet, but it will go in with our next ALP change for acceptance of all of these types of new technologies. So we continue to move forward. From our working group, we heard of, let me get over to there. So we heard about University of Alaska Fairbanks. They have one of the original pilot program partnerships with the FAA. They are able to bring different regions under their airspace partnership with the FAA. And so we felt like that was very important for us. And we've since signed an agreement with them. So we are now part of the Pan-Pacific region partnership, and we're excited about that. And we're currently working with University of Alaska on developing a COA so that we can do our drone, set up our drone zone. So this is going to be going here. And what that will allow us to do is start to incorporate some of these AAM technologies. It'll get not only our air traffic control tower, our airlines, our general aviation aircraft, our operations folks, it will get them used to having this type of technology on our field. So we're excited about that moving forward. We also were working with Georgia Tech with an application that was out there recently. We weren't successful in getting the application, but we worked very closely with Georgia Tech. We feel like this is still a strong opportunity. Matter of fact, we think maybe at some point when we start to initiate the AAM and when GDOT starts to initiate the AAM in the state of Georgia, something like this could be very beneficial in hooking up some of these smaller municipal or general aviation airports around the country and get them involved in this as well, which will provide economic development, jobs, and that type of thing throughout the state of Georgia. So we feel very strongly that that was a good partnership. And we still, again, keep in very close contact with all these folks. So Georgia Institute of Technology, our development authority here, and of course the Georgia Center of Innovation with Alyssa and Gary. So we just continue to keep moving forward. We're trying to connect all of these disparate dots into our program and further, the state of the industry moving forward. So Greg, happy to have you chime in. And then we have our contact information if anybody is interested.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Did I miss anything, Greg?
Greg, would you like to add something?
I think you covered that very adequately. Thank you. It's very nice to be with you today.
Thank you very much also for being here. And as mentioned, I will send also all the contact details to both of you. If there are any questions, I don't see so far in chat, but I would like to also thank all the speakers to quite keep it up to the time. We are really quite good with the agenda and the timing. So thank you very much for the discipline. And I would like to now invite Timon Rapp, founder and CEO of the Drivery, to tell us a bit more why now air mobility became also important for the driver, which, as I consider for now, it was mostly focused on urban mobility. Please tell us the story, what makes you working also towards this direction.
Yeah, thank you, Magdalena, for the nice invitation. And it's great to be part of that group of aerospace enthusiasts. Let me share maybe shortly with you about the Drivery, that you get a flavor of what we are doing. Give me a second. I try to share my screen with you. Is it possible to see it?
Yes, now, sorry, I was muted. Yeah, it's loading. Yeah, we see it. Yes, now it's full screen.
All right. So this is a slide showing a bit our location, which is interesting. We are in the heart of Berlin in Tempelhof, not where the former airport is. Many of you might still remember the Tempelhof airport, but we are a little bit more south at the harbor. And it's for a particular reason interesting also for urban aviation, because we are connected to the European waterway here, and which gives us the opportunity to launch drones on top of waterways, which is very present in Berlin. And in that way, establish a network, a traffic network, and even get out of town for intercity transport. So just to give you a flavor, this water location is not just a good view, but it's now also beneficial of launching airplanes or drones in urban environments. So basically, what is our mission? Our mission is in the Drivery to advance and accelerate the future of mobility. And the reason why the Drivery is existing at the end is that, well, this looks a bit weird now. That is that the world is getting significantly complex, and everyone is sitting in silos. And to take future mobility forward, you need to combine a lot of different aspects from artificial intelligence, electrification, aviation, material, name it. There need to be startups, corporates, material science, infrastructure, politics, name it. So I think all of you know it's massively complex. And the idea of the Drivery is to bring all that players, contributors, experts under one roof into one ecosystem and make them meet, make them connect, exchange, and by that create an acceleration effect within a very, very complex world today. And that is basically the innovation ecosystem that the Drivery is creating worldwide right now. Just to give you a little flavor, what we combine here. So we combine basically what used to be innovation hubs, co-working space, maker space. We have put that all into one building. We have a service landscape, perfect infrastructure for our mobility innovators, and so on. Also, there's also money, there's investment. And what you can see here and what is growing now, we started with automotive. This is correct, but we figured out autonomous cars and whatever it takes do not solve the space issue we have in urban environments like Berlin. So people start to get open to think in the third dimension. And that is also why we see now a whole cluster around aviation is appearing in the Drivery and growing. There's Aeronext. I think Johannes is also in the meeting here, coming with hydrogen drones. We have EVA here. You can see left button. They have a mobile. They're building this drone highways, and we have the politics in here as well, allowing us to do so. So we have drone companies here. so it's coming together, right? So we have the politicians on the table, we have the technology providers, the startups, the corporates on the table, and things start moving also in Europe. And I think people are more and more convinced the road stays as crowded as it is, and autonomous driving doesn't help, and smart traffic systems maybe not as well. So the readiness to go into the sky is increasing, and the mindset is also more and more open from the public users. Yeah, and as such, there's a bit shortly about the drivery, and we continue to build that network. We try to foster. We have a frequent now Berlin Aerospace breakfast coming up from December, where every month the community meets, is exchanging, and we hope we get all stakeholders and decision makers somehow on the table and get things moving fast, right? And maybe Johannes, if you are still around and can listen, maybe you can also explain why you are the driver and what you think. For me, it's exciting. I'm an aerospace enthusiast, and seeing things evolving very quickly right now, as it's jumping a bit. It makes me excited, and I'm happy to be part of that community. And thank you for the opportunity to present the drivery. And if you're in town in Berlin, feel free. The doors are open. Yeah, you can see exciting technologies, exciting startups. It's a spirit that is maybe also you can bring back home to your place. Yeah, looking forward to see you again in the near future.
Thank you very much, Tim, for presentation. And yes, Johannes will be also presenting soon. Then maybe, or unless Johannes, you want to jump in right now, or maybe when you will have your short presentation, he's one of the panelists. You can also tell us a bit what's the reason from your side to be in driver. But thank you very much for presentation, and I'm happy that it's also another space for stimulating the innovation, and for sure international collaboration is also one of the factors which support innovation. We see it once we bring different ecosystems, there's always some new quality happening, which is very, very positive. Thank you very much. And I don't see any more questions for now in the chat, so I would like to now invite to the panel discussion. I would welcome first our moderator, Gary O'Neill, who represents the Georgia Center of Innovation in domain of aerospace. Gary, are you with us? I will try also to pin all the speakers that we can see them. Gary, I will pin you. Gary, you are muted. Sorry, we don't hear you. Yes. Gary, you are muted. Okay. Oh yeah, now it's all fine. Thank you. And I would like to now invite also our panelists, Professor of Georgia Tech, Laurie Garrow. And I will try to find you all in thank you.
Wave.
Hello and welcome everyone.
Yeah.
Yes, I will try to also pin you so that we can see all the speakers. So it just the list is quite long, so I have to find you on the list. Just a minute. I would like to also invite Johannes Garbino Anton, CTO and co-founder of Next Aero, which also Timon was mentioning. He's also a member of Drivery, so we can also maybe tell us a bit more about the reasons why you are there. Then I would like to also invite John Olds, principal engineer at Spacework Enterprises.
Hello, everyone. Guten Tag.
And then last but not least, Tim Fisher, CEO and co-founder at LabFly, Urban Medical Drones by Diaven. Gary, I give a floor and our speakers to you, and I will try to pin all our speakers that you better see all of them.
Okay, thank you very much. So today the theme is getting things from A to B. And as the speakers have already alluded to, there's a common perception that in urban areas, particularly, the congestion and just density of people and movement of people on the ground with material is robbing us all of a precious commodity, which is time. And so these new innovations are meant to meet that challenge. And so there's a growing interest, of course, in drones, but there's also, the reason we've invited Dr. Olds from SpaceWorks along is there's a growing interest in using space as well. So it's not just low altitude drones, but spaceborne logistics as well. So let's get to it. I'll let the panelists each introduce themselves and give a quick description about how they fit into this intriguing topic. And let's go ahead and start with Dr. Garrow. She was first introduced. Laurie, go ahead.
All right, so I have a short presentation because I feel like pictures are worth 1,000 words. So I, along with Brian German at Georgia Tech, are co-directors for the Center for Urban and Regional Air Mobility. Our mission has 3 themes. The first is to do research, and we want to do research that's safe, desirable, sustainable, both at the urban as well as regional levels. And a key word here is at scale. So looking at doing studies that aren't just building, small aircraft, but building aircraft that might be more applicable at that scale level. So we have research. The second is an education theme, and the third is economic, to really support the economic opportunities for both urban and regional aviation in Atlanta, the state of Georgia, the US, and worldwide. There's probably 2 key areas, I would say, of our research themes that happen in the center. The first is that we do have a large number of faculty that are working on the aircraft technology itself, looking at designing prototypes, for instance, of electric aircraft. And then we have another set of faculty that really look at the operations policy and public perceptions. So doing things like looking at demand studies, doing door-to-door multimodal, modeling airspace management concepts, et cetera. These are some pictures of our students that have been designing, building, and flying some of the electric aircraft. This is an example of one of the demand studies that we had done, looking at how we could use cell phone data to look at potential UAM commuter routes. These are just looking at 2 cities, with green being the routes, blue being the access points. Given we have a theme of looking at Georgia and Germany, I thought it would be nice to point out that we have collaborated with Technical University of Munich and the Global Aerospace Campus to help develop a MOOC that is online as our educational efforts. Another key piece of our educational efforts is that we engage with the media, and we often do media interviews or opinion pieces, both in aviation in general and UAM, AAM, to help educate the public. And this is my contact information for the slides, should you have further information.
Okay. Next up will be Johannes.
Yes, let me bring up my slides in a second here. All right, now it's working. Yes, so we are next. We are based in Berlin, and we are developing the world's first long-range eVTOL using hydrogen fuel cells. Just 2 sentences. So we have our 25% scale prototype flying since earlier this year. We are one of the few teams to have a scaled prototype in this 4-meter wingspan, so quite big, where we are just preparing to fly our fuel cell system with our partners very early next year. And this is how you can reach out to us, and this is kind of our vision, connecting regions point to point with a minimum footprint, so fully sustainable. And to the question of Timon, huge shout out to the Drivery. So we moved our company very recently to the Drivery because this collaborative mind space is what we need, and there are companies looking at mobile hydrogen fueling solutions in the Drivery, at its EVA, looking at drone ports and sky ports. And so this collaboration, bringing new technologies together, will enable this whole ecosystem. So this is why we greatly support this.
Terrific. Thank you very much. John Olds from Spaceworks.
Gary, I think you are muted.
Oops.
No. Oh, hey, yeah, I heard everything. Hi, everyone. I do have a few slides, but I think I'll save my slides for the discussion portion, but nice to meet everyone. My name is John Olds. I am the founder and chairman at Spaceworks Enterprises, just outside of Atlanta. We're a small business primarily focused on high-speed transportation, and exo-atmospheric flight. And we've been in business here for about 22 years and were founded in Georgia and have grown along the way. So nice to meet everyone. I look forward to the discussion.
Okay. And last but not least, Tim Fisher.
Yeah, hi. My name is Tim Fisher. I'm CEO and co-founder of LabFly. I think you should see my slides by now. So what we do is a medical drone delivery service, which we're offering. For the use cases we are mostly working on is medical supplies, medication shipping, intralogistics, and courier deliveries. Currently, we work together with the Charité Facility Management, Europe's largest university hospital here in Berlin, pharmacy, south of Berlin, and Klinikum, which is in south of Germany. What makes our drone special are multiple things. It's aerodynamically optimized for cruise flight. We have very high demands on safety built into the drone, and we have a full integrated payload compartment. And what we offer is a solution developed in Germany, made in Germany, which is very safe. And the service we are offering is a full, complete service for the customer. So the customer doesn't need to be able to have any kind of knowledge about drones. He can use our drone delivery service as a similar to a courier service. And I'm also looking forward to the discussion.
All right. Terrific. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's get to it. The question that everybody has on their mind is that even though we've heard about this for years through science fiction and other things, the idea of point-to-point or nearly point-to-point transportation in very small vehicles that's been promised and is now being explored with advanced air mobility has only been recently really active, probably the last 5 years or so. So for our experts, what do you think the next 5 to 10 years is going to entail? What's it going to produce in the next 5 to 10 years? And how will we know we're making headway, and how will we know we're being successful? Dr. Garrow?
Yeah, sure, Gary. I can start with that question. So in my mind, there's a couple of key things that we're going to have to do to be able to get AAM off the ground. Joke intended. The key things for me are really looking at certification of both the vehicles, getting the system ready to go into the air. I think the certification process is probably going to be a little bit longer than some individuals or companies are hoping for. I expect to see some use cases that initially look at replacement of where helicopters currently operate. So thinking about possibly the tourist or, those first certification flights basically being in areas that are not overpopulations, or experiential flights, let's say, for instance, in Hawaii or over the Grand Canyon. So some things were replacement of helicopters. And then I think we'll start seeing, trips to the airport or some of the more complex or newer operational models roll out. And so for me, success I think of in two ways. One is, honestly, I think if we were able to replace some of the new UAM or AAM vehicles with helicopters, we get a safety aspect or improve safety that for me is a success factor. And then looking at niche markets at the beginning that we might be doing, like the airport trips or possibly commutes, would be another measure of success as it rolls out.
Okay. Johannes, how about you? What do you see the next 5 to 10 years looking like?
Yes, in that time frame, we definitely will see the necessary technologies maturing towards being able to certify this for human transport, so passenger transport. And a natural stepping stone is the heavy duty cargo drone. And the certification standards are kind of also pointing in the direction that this is a very interesting market to first certify and then also show operational experience of the technology bricks and then later on certifying for passenger transport and putting safety at the forefront. And at the same time, we see that those technologies will enable way lower, at least 10 times, if not long range, 2 orders of magnitude lower operational cost compared to gas turbine driven helicopters and the likes. And this kind of enables completely new business models.
Sure. Okay. For Tim, how about the cargo business? You have a really unique design there for urgent movement of material for medical things. What do you see the next 5 to 10 years evolving and looking like?
I think in the smaller drone market, there will be a large development in the next 5 years, especially looking at regulatories. The EU drone regulations, which came out or which started to be the new rules in the past 2 years. There was so much development, and the first permits are now granted by the German aviation authority, the Luftfahrtbundesamt, which will enable these kinds of operations within the next few years. We just obtained our first permission for BLOS flights with our drones, and that will enable us to start the first real operations within the next 6 months.
Very good, very good. So success to you is being able to capitalize on that BDLOS and be up and running in the next couple of years?
Yeah, definitely. So what we see is that the market is just starting right now, and I guess even for the kind of drone which Johannes is working on, it's important that the smaller drones are now up and flying, and that it gets more normal for everyone that there are drones now in the sky, and that deliveries of goods right now and later on also of people can be automatically done by such systems. And I think it's a natural evolvement if we start with something small and which gets normal to everyone, and then we will grow to larger drones, definitely in the near future.
Okay, terrific. So turning to Dr. Olds now, space. We have a lot of things in the news. We have Elon Musk out there saying that he's going to do suborbital transport of people to place with his large rocket ship. Tell us about it. What's your view on how things are going to go here?
Okay, yeah, thank you, Gary. And can you confirm that you can see my slides now?
Yes, you're good.
Fantastic. Yeah. All right, yes, I'm going to talk a little bit differently about some future ideas where we define point A to point B being relatively further away, maybe, than urban mobility. I have 3 different topics I want to introduce and where I think they're going. I'll do that quickly. One is on the area of global cargo delivery. I focused a little bit here on military applications, but we don't have to limit ourselves to those. But our company here in Atlanta, SpaceWorks, is partnered with the U.S. Air Force to look at the next generation of cargo delivery, where the requirement is to deliver 100 tons or more halfway around the world from the continental United States in under about an hour. On the left, you can see how we would currently accomplish the mission. Those 2 aircraft are built in Georgia. They're both Lockheed Martin products out of the Marietta plant just outside of Atlanta here, the C-5 and the C-130. Those are relatively slow. They do have capacity, but hours upon hours with a big logistics trail and the need for refueling along the way in order to accomplish a long global range. On the right is the vision that the Air Force and SpaceWorks is supporting, view as a vertical takeoff, vertical landing, suborbital, antipodal, so halfway around the world in 45 minutes or less, still able to carry 100 tons. That's called the Rocket Cargo Program. It's recently announced. Our company has partnered with them for the last couple of years. And this is the kind of thing we're advocating for as the future of global cargo delivery. In terms of time frame, if you do follow SpaceX and the Starship program, they're proposing to launch that once around, almost around the Earth here by the end of this year out of Boca Chica, Texas. Booster will return, simulated landing, and then the upper stage will also have a simulated landing off the coast of Hawaii. And so this is near term. Within 6 months, we're going to see something like this as a possibility. How about passengers? Passengers is something that our company has advocated for many years. High-speed flight, sort of the return of Concorde, but perhaps this time we can do it both technically and economically better than we did before. So how do we carry passengers on long-haul flights today? On the left, again, a couple of Georgia angles here with the Delta Airbus 321 that's built in our neighboring state of Alabama, and then a Gulfstream G650 built in Savannah, Georgia, would be ways that passengers would achieve long distance flights today at subsonic Mach numbers. On the right, you can see where this is headed. Boom is a leading supersonic development company here in the United States. It's in our neighboring state of North Carolina. They would intend to build the Boom Overture. That is an aircraft capable of flying up to 88 passengers at a Mach number of 1.7. So about twice the current speed that you can travel across the Atlantic Ocean today. SpaceWorks, my company, is doing advanced design work in partnership with NASA. So we have been partnered with NASA for a number of years to look at supersonic and high supersonic flight. Our initial design is called SaberCat. SaberCat is a 50-passenger jet capable of traveling at Mach 3.5 or Mach 4 with a turbo ramjet solution across the Atlantic Ocean or across the Pacific Ocean. So essentially quadrupling the flight speed that you see on the left. And then our colleagues next door to me here at Hermeus are developing a high supersonic speed aircraft for military applications called Halcyon. And that's also being built and developed here in the state of Georgia. So where we see long-range passenger flight headed is faster. There are a number of challenges to that, and I'm happy to talk about them in the discussion. Last but not least, what about space travel? I chose here to focus on the part of space travel that doesn't get much attention, and that is not from the Earth to orbit, but rather from orbit back to the Earth. So the idea of cargo return. On the left, the way that we accomplish that today, SpaceX Dragon and the Soyuz do most of the heavy lifting from the International Space Station back to Earth with limited cargo. And then Orion was just launched to the moon on Wednesday, yesterday. So it's out and flying. That's a Lockheed product along with NASA. Where we're headed in cargo return from Earth orbit, Boeing Starliner is the second commercial crew project, should come online with their first full-up demonstration launch next year. So that can launch cargo and crew and bring them back home to the Earth's surface. I'll skip to the bottom here. Aerospace Dream Chaser should fly within maybe next year. It's waiting on a ride. The Vulcan ride from ULA, maybe in 12 months, maybe a little bit longer. I know there are partnerships between Germany and Aerospace on landing sites and cooperative opportunities between Germany and German companies in terms of research in space and down mass that will flow from Dream Chaser. That's a lifting body. Our company is building in partnership with NASA and the US Space Force a sample return capsule that's shown there as Red 25, reentry device 25, capable of carrying 25 kilograms, even up to 50 kilograms back from Earth orbit to the surface and providing precision landing using a guided parafoil. So Gary, to answer your question, where do I think it's going? It depends on the question. But I think within the next 5 years, these are the kinds of things we'll be able to see in cargo, passengers, and sample or cargo return from orbit to the Earth.
Wow. We have to keep our heads on a swivel and keep looking up, I guess. Thank you very much, Jeff.
You're welcome.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about how this is going to affect us broadly. We've seen a little bit of a snapshot of that with the display of the waterworks in Berlin. I've never even seen that before. I was intrigued by that harbor in the middle of the city. But you know, basically, cities have evolved over decades, centuries, and they have a pattern and a footprint that's based on that evolution. And here we come with this disruptive technology of urban or regional air mobility, and we're seeking to place more airborne vehicles into that mix of already congested ground space. So how can this be done intelligently? How can cities manage their long-term infrastructure and insert this new infrastructure that needs to be built, that was alluded to with Diane and others, as it relates to AAM? Laurie, do you want to take the first shot at that?
Yeah, sure. So when I think about that in terms of the infrastructure, clearly there's planning that's going to be needed to be done in terms of making sure we have sufficient charging infrastructure, vertiports, really looking at the plan for today versus in the future, or longer term horizons. But I think some of the things that I get most excited about are thinking about how these new modes of transportation may help us to revitalize or better connect areas, you know, in our communities, in ways that we haven't thought of. So two examples, for instance, is that we've seen that the decline of shopping malls in the US, you know, with e-commerce, a lot of those large infrastructures with parking lots out in the suburb areas could be potentially repurposed, right, into vertiport stations, or looking at that. As we get new electric vehicles on the ground side, there's some sense that the parking requirements that you have in downtown areas may be lessened. And so again, I think there's repurposing opportunities that would help us maintain the livelihood of our cities. And then I'm particularly excited when we think about the regional markets in terms of looking at revitalizing our smaller communities that are our non-hubs here in the US, where we've lost a lot of our air service over the past decades into the smaller communities. And so really being able to leverage that infrastructure for more of the regional markets, I think, is another big opportunity. And Gary, you're on mute.
I haven't gotten the hang of this yet. Okay, so for our European friends, Tim, Johannes, how do you all see interweaving, you know, 21st century technology into 13th and 14th century city footprints? How is that going to work?
Okay, let me just quickly start on that. With our technology, why we developed the lab fly in how it is as a drone, which is a multi-copter and being able to start and take off in very small locations, is so that we can apply it very easily in the known infrastructure. So the footprint which you need to operate our drone is just like 4 by 4 meters, which is mostly found everywhere. And so that's a great opportunity. What Laurie just mentioned already is that not only the cities are an area which is quite important, which we need to connect, but also the rural areas. And we are working on some projects in rural areas as well with our lab flight. So it's developed with urban usage in mind, but still we also work in these areas because we see even in the village, there's not a large space in the city in the center of the village to start and operate a large drone. So for example, if you take the pharmacy, for example, and you want to deliver medicine from the pharmacy to the patient at home, then you will still need a place where to operate the drone. And mostly the pharmacy is in the heart of the village. So even there, it's possible to operate our drones. And that's why we have such a small footprint. But then that's for which is coming in the next 5 years. What we see in 5 to 10 years, Johannes can tell you.
Okay, let's
right.
shift to him.
Thanks, Tim. Yeah, so looking at passenger transport, we see the market is now starting to formalize the needs, and we think you will not fly with a VTOL every morning kind of into the office, but the big painkiller is when you are commuting 300 to 600 kilometers. So let's call it 300 plus minus. And now the big OEMs are trying to push in this direction. And this is why we started to work on looking at fuel cells, integrating it into an eVTOL. And it has quite some complexities. And we saw that you cannot go with a clean sheet. So you have to go with a clean sheet design to design the vehicle around the fuel cell power system and the whole subsystem, cooling, and vice versa. And it is a very mass sensitive design space. So you have to be really, really lightweight in all systems and subsystems. But it's worth the hustle to get this towards a certifiable vehicle. And then you really can get away with the infrastructure like with a certified helipad nowadays. That's why most of the vehicles these days are defined below 15-meter span. So that all in all, you would need a 50 times 50 meter kind of platform, maybe some landing lights if you intend to fly at night. And that's more or less all you need, plus some free airspace to approach and depart. But you can easily fit this in even the old European cities, not maybe in the dead in the city center, but at the peripheral area where you can get with a subway or take a cab. And then within 10, 15 minutes, you are there. And then you can really meaningfully connect cities and also rural areas.
Okay. So, John, your spacecraft, where are we going to be dropping these things into close to cities? And what do you think that's going to look like?
Sure. Yeah, that is a challenge. So Bill Gates has said that as humans, we typically overestimate what we can do in 1 year, but we underestimate what we can do in 10 years. I think there's got to be a corollary to that statement for aerospace or space applications that increases those numbers by a factor of 10, maybe 5. But I think it's fair to say that we may not see the idea of a rocket landing or taking off in a city center in our lifetimes, but I bet our grandchildren will see this kind of capability. When you think about a rocket landing in a city center or taking off from a city center, I imagine most of us immediately think of the noise. That's a very noisy thing to do. You think of exhaust products. There's a rocket plume that's coming out over the city, and you think of accidents. You think of safety. You know, how is it going to be that a rocket can vertically land or vertically take off in the middle of a high density city? I think there are technological solutions to all of those problems. In terms of noise, combined cycle propulsion, rockets are actually quite light. Well, let me rephrase that. Rockets, when they land, are quite light. When they take off, they're quite heavy. So I think on landing, we can convert to a different type of propulsion, one that uses fans or turbofans or even rotors to land more quietly in the city center, because at that point, the rocket is quite light. In terms of exhaust products, our company has looked at a technology that uses water, steam, water vapor as an exhaust product. So a relatively benign thing. If you have a heat source, you can heat up water. I'm not talking about reacting hydrogen and oxygen. I'm talking about using steam. So for certain periods, maybe we can use something green like water vapor to take off and land right around the city center. And in terms of accidents, that's a matter of experience. SpaceX has already landed vertical rockets almost 100 times safely. We all remember some of the very first ones when they tried to land on a barge and failed. It's spectacular, but now they do that routinely. And so at some point we will gain enough confidence that we will trust a rocket coming from space or going to space to land in our cities. It will take a while, maybe 50 or 100 years, I guess.
Very good. All right, so let's pull that thread just a little bit more. We have a few more minutes. Well, we have 1 more minute. For the AAVs, you kind of hinted that the evolution is already underway. We're seeing electric aircraft sort of shifting away from lithium battery power to hydrogen. What's beyond hydrogen? What do you think it's going to look? That evolution is going to look
like? So I guess this question was pointed in my direction.
For you, yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
To be honest, I don't foresee any technology beyond battery electric and hydrogen fuel cell. They will be the core drivers for aviation. And in the long run, also for long range flights, hydrogen will be the key source of energy. In between, sustainable aviation fuels will kind of make our current fleet more sustainable, but literally at cost. And hydrogen is the perfect mix of allowing a lot of energy per mass on board and still being completely emission-free except for the water vapor.
Okay, thank you very much. Magdalena, I think we're out of time. So
yes, thank you very much. Yeah, I can see that there's...
Thanks to all the panelists. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much, Gary, for moderating and all the speakers to participate. I see in the meantime, we got a few questions in the chat. I will read it. I'm not sure if it's to the panelists, probably also maybe Laura, you can also elaborate. First of all, many thanks for this extremely interesting insights to all of you. In which fields could both sides, US, Berlin, Brandenburg, profit collaboration or learn from each other? Are they already international collaboration projects, for example, in research and development? I don't know if there's anybody, maybe Professor Timmerman, I don't know, are you aware do you have any international projects or maybe from Skyworks?
Yeah, maybe just to look at really emission-free or emission-reduced aviation. I think that's the biggest problem we have to solve in the moment. And I think we should focus in these questions what we can do together in this field. It's the most interesting topic, I think, and there is a lot of things to do, especially in the area of certification. And I think the cooperation in the certification process between EASA, for example, and FAA should be very important in the next time.
Thank you. Thank you. And there's one more question about education. Regarding public education on AIM, hypersonic travels in the US. What are your experiences, acceptance, and what is the public perception?
So I may be able to take that one. We've done quite a few customer surveys looking at individuals' willingness to take a urban air mobility vehicle. And one of the things that I find fascinating is that the population split. About 10% are very enthusiastic. I would love to take this mode. And about 10% are like, are you kidding me? I'm never getting in one of these aircraft, which is pretty typical with a new mode of transportation. So I think like with everything else, as the new technologies roll out, we'll have our early movers and then some that might take a little bit longer to come in.
Thank you very much. And I also hope with this webinar, we just start a conversation. So we have so many different relevant experts and organizations. I'll be very happy to hear that in a few months, there's some new project coming up between our organizations. And we're also happy to support further discussion on this topic. And I will also invite you now to the breakout rooms where there will be occasion also to maybe talk a bit in the smaller groups, maybe about possibilities for further collaboration. I would like to thank you very much to all the speakers, to moderator, on the participants. and I hope it was just the beginning of our discussion. You will be redirected automatically to breakout rooms, but you should be able to change the room if you wish so. So thank you very much, and I hope to see some of you in the breakout room as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for organizing this.